Okay, so the first screen that you're going to see when the software loads up is the home screen, and this is going to give us a couple of different options. It's either going to give us the option to log in, which we're going to cover in a moment, but it's also going to give us the option to quick start. Now the quick start function is a great function for just presenting the kit and also for people to just have a little bit of a play and get used to the kit. So we click on click start. Whenever we click on click start, it's going to ask us to accept that we're using this equipment at our own risk. Just in case somebody's in the facility, you haven't given them induction, it's really important that people agree to accept that they're using the equipment at their own risk. So we press agree. Now this is going to bring us the quick start screen. Now if I give it a little bit of a hit, what it's going to show us on the quick start screen is 3 dials. First one is going to be our kinetic energy measurement. Second one is going to be the human force in Franklin's, and the third one is going to be our impact power in watts. Now really interesting, this gives us the opportunity to look at our traffic light training system. So whenever I record a strike using quick start, in order for me to stay within the green, I've got to be at 80% of my best. Now when I strike my best, then all the dials go full green. Now it might be that when I'm striking, when I'm training, that just one of my elements is a new best, and that will be the only dial that goes green. So really cool addition to the software is that traffic light training system. Make sure that in order for us to stay within 80% of our best, or in order to stay in the green, we're going to be hitting at 80% of our best. So even on the quick start screen, that's just a great little function. And if I want to reset the numbers, I'll just press restart and I'll start again. So the quick start screen, even on its own, is a great functional training tool. I also have the opportunity or the ability to foul a strike as well. So that's the quick start screen. All right, so the next thing we're going to look at then is how to create a new user profile. Now the ability to create new users is in our coach login. This enables coaches to monitor who gains access to new users. So we go to login. Now once you've got your own system, you can then create your own username and password for coach. To begin with, very creatively, it's coach and coach. And we're going to log in. Once we log in, then we're going to get the coach home screen. We're going to go a little bit more into the coach home screen as we go through. But what we want to look at is we want the user menu tab and we want to create new user. Then what we're going to do is we're going to fill in that new user's personal details. Now for the unique username, we use an email because that ensures that that username is going to be unique. So we're not going to have 2 people with the same name. Password, first name, last name and gender. Then we click next. Then this is going to give us the ability to input what category this person is. So if you're a boxing school or a mixed martial arts school, then you can have your own category. So if we look, we've got the option to go boxing, gym, martial arts or MMA. So if we just select MMA, it's going to give us all of the official MMA weight categories. So I'm going to pick I think I'll go with heavyweight. And then if I want to, I can put in my association, whichever my association is, date of birth, so you can select your date of birth. And then we've got weight and height. Once we've inputted all of those different parameters, then just click save. Okay, that's asking me for the password. So come back. So that's how we create a new user login. Okay, once we've created that new user in the background, then we're going to log in. So we're going to log in using those new details. So username will be your unique email. I really should have a shorter email. And then password. Click the tick, log in, and this is going to bring us onto our user login page now. Now, whilst I'm logged in as a user, or if I'm as a coach and I'm then logging into a user, it's going to give me 3 tabs down the bottom: session, profile, and history. So we're going to start with session. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at power training. So this gives me the ability to select power, speed or endurance training. So we're going to start with power training. So select power. Then it brings me on to the technique selection screen. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to decide which technique that I'm going to record my data against. And the software itself is populated with some standardized techniques. For your own school or gym or organisation, as an administrator, you have the ability to set up your own techniques that are more specific to your style. So if we start off with the upper body techniques, and as we go through, we then work through lower body techniques. So if we select a technique, such as a hook, and next thing is to select whether I want to record on the left or the right side of the body. So we're going to go with right. Next one is number of repetitions. So I can select 5, 10 or 25 repetitions. We know that 5 is the golden number for measuring power. And then we can also select the time delay between the strikes. And when we're measuring power, we usually just want to keep that at 1. Press next. This is going to bring up the strike screen. Now on the power screen, this is going to display kinetic energy, the human force and impact power. So we're going to do those 5 repetitions. And then it's going to bring up my punch summary screen. Now you will have noticed on that the dials weren't going very high. That's because in the back end of the system logged against my hook are much bigger numbers, which means in relativity I'm not performing very well on that hook. So that explains the dials. When we come on to the power summary then, we've got the best and average for each of the measurables, human force, the kinetic energy and the impact power, and it's also going to display my power index, which is my power to weight ratio or my human force to weight ratio. Okay, so the last thing with this summary screen is then I can look at each series, each repetition within that series of repetitions on its own. So if I'm looking at applying different coaching principles or trying different techniques, different aspects of my technique, then I can isolate each technique to see how I performed. Or if I'm coaching somebody, I can then isolate each technique. Okay, so that's power testing. Okay, so now we're going to look at speed testing. So just like with the power testing, we're going to select session on the user homepage, and then we're going to click the speed tab. Exactly the same as when I'm setting up my power testing. It's going to bring me to my technique selection screen. So I'm going to select my technique. We'll go back with that hook. It's going to ask whether I want to perform testing on the left or the right side, number of repetitions. And the interesting thing now is the time delay is set to random. And this is going to be an important aspect of our speed training. So what we want when we're testing speed is we don't want ourselves or an athlete to be able to kind of get in a rhythm and guess when that trigger is going to happen. So we want to select a random time delay. Click next. This is going to bring us up to the speed screen. Now as you notice, there's a delay. And I'm not sure when that trigger is going to happen. Now, on the speed screen, on the left-hand side, it displays reaction time. And that's reaction time from that on-screen audible flash and that, on-screen visual flash and that audible trigger, that boxing bell that you can hear, the human force, and they go together to create a speed index, which is my power to weight ratio for that strike divided by the reaction time in seconds. So the speed index reflects my ability to maintain power whilst responding quickly to that stimulus. So you will see, because I'm talking, it's a much greater reaction time and therefore a non-existent speed index. So you can also see that the dial is working on my best for the hook in that system. So again, it's quite interesting. Can I respond quickly whilst also keeping myself in the green section at 80% of my power for my maximum of power for that technique in the back end? On the speed summary screen, we've got the average and the best for each of the measurables, which in this case is the human force in Franklin's and the reaction times. It's also detailing my kinetic energy and impact power there. And it also shows me my speed index, which again is my power to weight ratio, or average power to weight ratio for that series of repetitions divided by the reaction time in seconds. When we're training speed with athletes, what we want to do is increase their speed and improve their reaction times, whilst also keeping that emphasis on maintaining a certain amount of power and consistency within our strikes. So that's the speed testing function. So now we're going to look at the endurance testing function. So same for power and speed. I'm going to select session. On the right hand side, I'm going to select the endurance tab. Exactly the same as setting up the power and the speed. I'm going to select my technique. I'm going to select whether I want it on the left or the right side. And on the endurance testing function, it's going to default to 25 repetitions. All right, to keep it consistent. So it's going to default to 25. The time delay, we're not really interested in looking at the reaction time on this one. So it was defaulted to 1. And when we set it going, then we're going to perform those 25 repetitions. So at the end of those 25 repetitions then, it's going to display that performance in a visual bar graph. And what we're going to see is fluctuations in performance, particularly as we get to the end of those 25 repetitions. Underneath, the software is going to display the average for the human force, the impact power, and the kinetic energy. And it's also going to give us an endurance index, which is the same as our power index. So it's Franklin's divided by our weight in kilos, but so as not to confuse it with the power index, which is done over lower volumes of repetition, we keep the endurance index separate. Okay, so that's the endurance testing. So now we're going to look at our Combat Athlete Profile. And we're just going to click on Profile on the user home screen. And this is going to bring up our Combat Athlete Profile dashboard. Now, on the left-hand side, this is going to display my personal details, my name, age, height, weight, my style, and my association. In the middle here, what the software is going to do is it's going to display my top 5 power techniques within the system. Now, if I'm a martial artist or a mixed martial artist, what it's going to do is it's going to display my top 3 upper body strikes in ranking power order, and it's also going to display my top 2 lower body strikes as well. If I have only recorded upper body strikes in the system, then it will just show my top 5 upper body strikes. As we move up to the top, this is our cap rating, and a cap rating is broken down into 3 ratings, which are the power, speed, and endurance rating. Now, a power rating is the average power index, so my average power to weight ratio across my top 5 techniques. Now, those techniques may vary depending on your style or what your speciality is. Then the speed rating is my average speed index for my top 5 speed techniques. And then the same with the endurance rating. That's my average endurance rating for my top 5 endurance techniques. Now, those techniques may vary between those 3 ratings, or they might be all the same. The 3 then go together to create a unique cap rating. Now, a cap rating then encompasses a huge amount of data across multiple measurables, multiple techniques, and it combines them all into one single number. And because it's based on power to weight ratio, that number is relative for anybody, regardless of weight and regardless of style. And then lastly then, we have a little scale beneath the top 5, which demonstrates and displays my power delivery on the left and the right side of the body. Okay, so if you're always measuring both sides of the body with all your techniques, that's going to give you a very accurate reflection of where your power sits, or where an athlete's power sits on the left versus right. So that's the Combat Athlete Profile initial dashboard. If we move on to the next screen, as part of our 4-step coaching method, we really quickly want to identify somebody's strengths and areas for development, and the software does this for us on this second screen. So we're starting with our power techniques, and what it does is it's going to display my top 3 techniques and my bottom 3 techniques. Now this is displaying my upper body techniques. If I want to look at my lower body, it's going to give me my top 3 and my top 2 lower body. There's only 2 kicks in this system, so it's only showing me 2, but it will give me my top and my bottom 3. Now if we come back and we go back in, then we can look at our full list. Now the full list will display all of the techniques that I've measured in a power ranking order, whether they're upper or lower body techniques. What this enables us to do really quickly is just look at and define exactly where I need to apply that coaching in my own training, or where I need to apply coaching in an athlete's training. Now, however many techniques you've recorded in the software, you could have 30. You can use the scroll down or the scroll bottom up if you've done more than 10. If I select next, that's going to display my speed techniques in a ranking order. If I click next again, it's going to display my endurance techniques in ranking order as well. Okay, so that's the next screen within the Combat Athlete Profile dashboard. Now we're going to look at the history function, and this is where we want to go when we want to look at monitoring an athlete or our own performance over time. So select history, then going to give us the option whether we want to view our history on a power, speed or endurance. So in this case we're going to select power. Then in the same way as when we're setting up a technique to record our data, it's going to ask me which technique I want to look at the history on. So we're going to go back to that hook, whether it's the left or the right side, and then it's going to ask me to select a date range between 2 dates. We're just going to go for the last couple of weeks. Then we click next. What this is then going to do is it's going to display my history within that time frame using a simple visual line graph. Now on this occasion, 224% increase, so it's going to demonstrate it's going to display my increase or decrease in performance using a percentage between those 2 dates. So this is a very useful screen to screen share and save so that we can look at it going forward. Now, once I've started measuring data on that technique, I can then monitor that performance forever on that technique. And whenever I record any data through a series of repetitions, it's going to plot that on a line graph. And that can be the same just within a single session on the same day. Say I perform 4 or 5 sets of the same repetitions on a jab or a technique, look at putting some coaching principles in, do a little bit of pad work, come back on. At the end of the session, we can look at and see how we've hopefully increased and not decreased in performance. Then if I want to do the same thing for any other technique across either of the 3 measurables of power, speed and endurance, and just repeat the same process. If I go to speed, select the technique, select which side of the body I want to be looking at, and then between those 2 dates, and just press next. All right, so really nice, easy to use, nice and simple. So that's the history function. All right, so now we're going to log into the coach login. So put in the username and password, coach and coach, and click login. This is going to give us the coach home screen. Now this is going to give me the opportunity to select user menu or select user. So we start with user menu. Now this is going to give me the opportunity to create new user, like we did in the create new user section, but it's also going to give me the ability to edit a user. So if I go on myself, it's going to give me the ability, if somebody's forgotten their password, we can change their password. Also, if we want to change somebody's weight, particularly because it's important to keep up with weight for the accuracy and the indexes, and therefore the accuracy of our Combat Athlete Profile data. All I'm going to do, if I want to make any amends, it's been a couple of weeks, change that, click save. That's going to tell me that that user's saved. Okay, so that's how we can edit a user's information via the user menu. Second thing we're going to look at is select user. Now, with the coach login, This login has been put in specifically to enable us to perform coaching for either small groups or multiple athletes without having to log them in and out. So it's a very, very important coaching tool when working with more than one person. So if I put select user, whenever I'm wanting to switch between users, I'm going to select the user. This is then going to bring me to what is essentially that user's home screen. Then I can perform any testing that I want, and those stats are going to be logged against that user. It just makes going between users that little bit more simple and practical when delivering coaching to multiple users. So that's the select user function. Now we're going to look at the administrator login or the admin login. So I'll go to login. Now again, the default for this login is admin. You're going to want to change this when you get your software. So login, this is going to bring up the admin home screen. Now on the bottom row, firstly, we designed the software that if it was going to be used in a commercial environment, we didn't want people accidentally exiting the software all the time. So to enable you to exit the software, we've kind of hidden the exit in the admin login. So the first button along there is exit, and that's going to take you back out of the software. Next thing along is the category menu. Now this is going to give us the option to either create a new category or edit a category. So if we look at a new category, now if you're a martial arts school, or you might be a gym or a centre which teaches multiple martial arts, you maybe want to create your own individual categories for your users that's then going to come up on their unique combat athlete profile. So if we select category type, we've got all the official boxing weight categories, we've got the official MMA categories. If we look at martial arts, for instance, what this enables me to do, I might want to say I teach karate. This is going to give me the ability to create a karate white belt, for instance. Click the tick and click save. Now, when I go into the category menu and I look at edit category, I go into martial arts, I'm going to have that category saved within the martial arts subcategory, right? And you can create as many categories in there as you like, from white to black belt, multiple styles. It just enables users to have their own unique category within their combat athlete profile. So now we're going to come back to edit category. Essentially, if I want to edit any of these categories, this is where I can do it. Okay, so I can change the names, I can add or make amendments to any of the categories that I've created. Okay, so that's the category section. Next, we're going to look at the user menu. Now, very much like the same within the coach login, this is going to give me the ability to create a new user, exactly the same as we did within the coach login, but it's also going to give us the opportunity to import or export. Now what this will allow us to do is to either import a CSV file, so if you've got 100 members within your club, you can import them all at the same time using a CSV file. That's something that's available in our software toolkit, but you can also export data as well, which is going to enable you to export all of your data within the software into a CSV file, which means that you can analyze this using a third-party application and run reports with something, say, Excel. So that's the import and export function. And then lastly then, as an administrator, it gives you the ability to edit your techniques that people can select within the technique selection part of the software. Now, if we click new technique, it's going to ask us what name of the technique. If we put something like spinning hook, and then it's going to ask us, is it a hand or a leg technique? I'm going to select leg and then click save. That technique then will be available for users to select whenever they're selecting either their power, speed or endurance testing. So that's the technique menu.